Hi, everybody. After recording this week's podcast, I decided to add a bonus segment at the end, a 15-minute informative discussion with my good friend Ed Mazlish, a lawyer, about the verdict in the gay wedding cake case before the Supreme Court. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Stay tuned or forward till the end to find out the verdict and what it means for our First Amendment rights.
You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny. Mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Roman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Roman.
Welcome. It's always sunny here at the House of Sunny podcast, mostly because I'm here, your host, Sunny. But today I have a guest sidekick, Justin, who's pretty sunny himself. He's from the MidSide Podcast. Justin, tell people where they can find your podcast.
You can look on iTunes or anywhere else podcasts are streaming. Just look up Welcome to the Midside. You can also find it on the midside.com/podcast.
Sweet. You've actually got a website.
Yeah,
my website
I built that all myself.
That's pretty good. My website is houseofsunny.tv, and I had a friend transfer it over to a new hosting for me, and they totally screwed it up while they were doing it. If my friend is listening, I love you, thank you, but I'm completely screwed up now, and I've basically just dropped the website because I don't know what to do. I'd have to hire somebody and pay him thousands of dollars to fix it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you know how to do the back end, it's not that hard, but whenever you're transferring between hosts like that, I wouldn't necessarily blame your friend because there's a lot of whoever the new host is, they have all their new settings and everything too, so that's all tricky stuff. It's more navigating that's the problem.
Yeah,
but that's the world, isn't it? Navigating all this crap.
I mean, people don't realize when you do stuff like this, you have to wear every hat, and it's all like a lot of it is highly technical, and you have to learn and become almost an expert to just get things done and have them look professional and be nice before you get to the point where you can actually outsource that. But yeah, so they transferred my website and all the URLs broke. So, years of having links and people linking to my site and all my articles and all my videos and everything, all of those links are broken. And now some months later, like it's been over a year now, if you Google me, like there's nothing there because all the links broke. And then over time, now like my whole Google presence is gone, and there's this really cheesy guy he's like a terrible clothing designer, and he operates under the banner House of Sunny. So now his stuff comes up, and I'm like, oh, I used to own him because he came after me. So that I had all the names and all the stuff, and I had all the clicks and links and everything, but now he totally owns me.
Maybe it was a conspiracy. Maybe he pretended to be your friend to sabotage everything.
Yeah, well, it's clear that he's operating with daddy's money because he's a total hack. So he might have been a payoff. I didn't even think about that.
I have a question for you, though. When people are Googling you, did you ever take a trip to Philadelphia? So when people tried to Google Sunny in Philadelphia, they just ended up with pictures of the show the whole time.
See, that's a good one. See, that's what's funny about my name. Like it's tough because if you Google Sunny, you get weather. You don't get me. I have the only Sunny Loman name in the world. So the full name gets you somewhere. But when I first started out, I wasn't using my name because I didn't want, well, this goes into our first story, but I didn't want to be swatted, which is when people call the cops and say there's like a hostage situation at your house or something. I didn't want people to find me. And I was doing videos wearing hijabs, and you got to be careful with that and your security. So I just went out there with my first name, but then I used House of Sunny as kind of a way to get around that because you could Google that and I would come up. But yeah, Sunny in Philadelphia. That should definitely be a headline of a video sometime.
It's never sunny in Philadelphia. Don't go. In a recent episode, one of my co-hosts, Daniel, he talked about his recent trip to Philadelphia, and his conclusion was don't go. If you're going to go to the East Coast, go to New York, D.C., Boston. There's just Philly has history, and that's it.
Well, but, so there's history. I mean, I've been to New York, D.C., and Boston.
Okay, go to Philly. Maybe you can go and sympathize with them right now because that's another one of our stories this week, right?
In Philadelphia has the Liberty Bell, and that has the first Congress Place, right? I don't know what other
yes.
historical landmarks there are there, but I mean, it was once the seat of the United States, so it must kind of be like Boston.
Yes,
in that
that's
way.
true.
Boston,
Sort of, except our fans in Boston never booed Santa Claus, so there's the difference.
All right. Well, so talking about being swatted for a second, because the number one news item I was going to bring up today is David Hogg was swatted. His family was swatted. Somebody called in a hostage situation to his family's house in Florida. And the cops actually showed up and stuff. And that's really, really dangerous. And, I normally don't support that except that it's David Hogg.
I mean, it's hard to support that kind of thing. I mean, look, I don't agree with the kid. He's kind of an obnoxious kid.
So obnoxious.
But when you're endangering his family, so to a certain extent, the parents are responsible for the kid and how he grew up.
We could do a whole show on whether or not his parents are responsible for what a dink that kid is.
Right. So there's a whole mess of crap here, right? Like psychology, philosophy, cultural issues. But when you're endangering people's lives like that, because that's the thing about swatting. Can you imagine you're just hanging out and you're in the shower and you get out and a SWAT guy busts down the door and tackles you naked because somebody swatted your apartment or your house? That's insane.
It's really, really vicious and dangerous. And he actually has younger siblings too. So people get shot. I mean, it's not a joke. People actually do get shot during these types of SWAT visits or raids. Innocent people. And so it is very, very dangerous. And I originally, I'm sure people think it's some right winger who's done this, but I would be willing to bet it's a left winger. Somebody who doesn't like him, or somebody, it's just got to be something related to the left, because it seems like the left is they're the only people who SWAT.
If you can tell the difference anymore, good for you, because I can't tell the difference between any of these people anymore. So I bow to your superior intellect that you can tell the difference between what the left and right does anymore.
Come on. I mean, they oh, really? I've never seen a story of a right winger swatting a left winger. I've never seen a story like that. So I don't think that's fair. All the swatting stories are from the left.
Yeah, that's fair in regards to swatting in specific. I mean, this is something that started with Gamergate, right? Where they claimed all the Gamergaters were doing that. They were saying, oh, look at all these vile right-wing trolls who are swatting, but it was actually people on the left.
Commie anarchist leftists. It's like this Antifa wing of the left. These angry soy boys who sit in their basements and play video games.
Which has a wonderful irony to it, right? I love the phrase commie anarchist. Like that is the most ironic.
It's so ironic. I don't even know how you can call yourself that. I don't. Those things so don't go together.
Yeah.
Except, I guess, Marx thought that ultimately the government would fall away and you would have this perfect symbiotic bureaucracy, I guess.
Right.
And
no, that's
everybody
exactly
would be part of the bureaucracy, and therefore it's kind of anarchy.
Right. It's did you ever see the South Park episode Die Hippie Die, where
No.
It's one of my favorite scenes from the show, and they nailed this 100%. So all these hippies descend on South Park and they start a new what's the big I'm blanking right now. I'm having a huge mind fart. Jimi Hendrix lit his guitar on fire. Woodstock. So they have a new Woodstock in South Park. And the kids are in there, Kyle and Stan, and they're talking to hippies. And the hippies are like, yeah, let's overthrow the government, man, and the corporations. And they're like, and we can create a group where everyone lives together in harmony and trades. And they're like, you mean a town? And they're like, and one person can be a baker, and one person can one people can make food for people, and other people can protect them. And the kids are like, you mean a baker and a cop? And the whole point and why it's so funny is a lot of Marxism, right? And this is funny because you hear this about Ayn Rand, where they say she's childish, right? And no, she's very simplistic. But you look at Marx, and a lot of it is that way, where he has the basic thing in there where it's, oh, we're going to have a power structure without a formal power structure. And it's just a fantasy in that way. And that South Park episode showed that. But it's also why these people act in the way they do. They live in these fantasy worlds where swatting is okay. Oh, it's not real. There's no reality. It's just we're so disconnected that, we're going to send these armed troops who think there's a hostage into someone's house, and everything's going to be okay. That doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money to pay those people. It doesn't cost money for the damage they cause. and it doesn't cause harm to the people it's happening to. Oh, there's no real consequences.
It is weird. It's a weird, like, emotional disconnect that these people seem to have, where they get outraged over, you know, the waterboarding of a jihadi. And maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not saying one way or the other, but that will outrage them. But then they're okay with swatting or beating somebody up at a Trump rally or something like that.
Just Antifa in general, the fact that that's even okay and that even gained any momentum is absurd. I mean, I've seen the real
they're sympathized with, they're ignored. The media doesn't even cover it. It's
right.
Yeah. I mean, the whole establishment left even supports them, at least by not condemning them.
Well, and that's sort of the irony, and we'll see this, I think, in a later story of sort of the projection that goes on with a lot of what the left does.
All right. So the next story here is Trump canceled Eagles White House visit. Are you a sports fan?
Am I a sports fan?
Is that like a dumb question? Oh, that's
right. Am I
right.
a sports fan?
Hey, I'm not. So
I am excited.
I was like, why are the Eagles going to the White House in the first place? Who are they? Is this a baseball? Oh, okay. They won the Super Bowl. I had to look that up.
You're kind of re-traumatizing me a little bit because they beat my team in the Super Bowl. So.
I should have given you a trigger warning.
No, it's okay because Tom Brady is back in minicamp today. There was a controversy like, oh my God, Tom Brady didn't go to optional team activities, but he is here practicing today in Foxborough. So yes, I am a sports fan, and yes, I am excited for the upcoming NFL season. But no, I don't care about any of this. But go ahead and
the protest, what's going on. Okay, so you don't care about the taking the knee during the anthem.
I don't care about any of it. That's a role between.
You didn't boycott the NFL when they all started taking the knee.
No, I don't care. In fact, if the players want to take a knee, I say more power to you.
What about the cops or pig socks?
Well, I mean, I don't support that, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. And if they want to become a distraction to their team, then that's fine. I mean, that was my whole argument about Colin Kaepernick to begin with, is people were saying, oh, he's not being hired because of racism. No, he's not being hired because if you look at what he brings to the team production-wise versus the distraction he's going to bring to the team, it's not worth it. Nobody's going to inject that into the locker room.
Ultimately, it is a cost benefit. I mean, if he were a lot better, they would have probably let it go.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've always said about this whole thing, this is an agreement between the employer and the employee, and I get why the league is dealing with this, why they created the new league, the rules and everything, because this is a PR issue for the league.
Totally.
They don't want
to
lose
lost
their
a lot
fans.
of ratings. They've lost. People are boycotting them. It's kind of a soft boycott, but they have lost viewership. A lot of the diehard fans are extremely patriotic people, and they're pissed about it. And it does come across, honestly, the whole Kaepernick protest. First of all, I'm totally against Black Lives Matters, and they're communists, and their message is blurry, and they are just kind of anti-cop and anti-white, and they block streets, which is wrong, at freeways, and, throw bottles and stuff at police precincts and things like that. And I'm against that. But okay, I'm all right with people speaking out again, having that viewpoint. It's America, you get to say what you want to say, but it is a show. It is entertainment. It's televised, and they do have a right to control that somewhat. So I don't have any sympathy. He gets paid a lot of money. If he wants to go head up because of his name and everything, he could have lent a lot of respectable credibility to a movement. And I guess in a sense he did help the movement, but I think in some senses too, though, he turned off a lot of people. And now you have that situation where, unfortunately the NFL waited a year to deal with it, and they've come out with this thing. I think it's pretty reasonable what they came out with. You can stay in the locker room, no harm, no foul, but if you come out, you have to stand. What do you think?
Well, that's the way it used to be. It used to be that all the teams would just stay in the locker room. They changed it, and all the teams started coming out. That was a much different thing. So it's more a return to the traditional way.
Was that a change? Like when they were in the locker room before, who decided they should come out? The NFL or the players?
It's hard to say. I don't remember. This was when I was growing up because I never paid attention to the anthem. Who pays attention to the
Nobody.
anthem? The only time you pay attention to it is when you're in the stadium.
It. Unless you know it's Roseanne Barr or Lady Gaga.
Or somebody butchered it. I forget. Somebody
Roseanne
butchered
Barr.
it.
That was Roseanne Barr.
Was it Roseanne who was all over the place with it? Yeah.
Yeah, on purpose. She purposely was off key and screechy.
I don't remember what that was
for. But...
I think that's just her modality, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, if somebody had to get me to sing the national anthem, it would come out the same way, whether I wanted it to or not. But no one would hire me to sing the national anthem, so.
Yeah, well, no one will hire her to sing it anymore either.
Well,
but yeah, I don't know who made the change, but they made the change. It happened. I mean, back in the day, the Patriots came out as a team, and that changed it. Everyone started coming out as a team. So it's all the ebb and flow of society. And that's sort of the larger problem with it is not, that it's happening or that the players are doing it in specific. I don't care about that. But it's how are we at a point in our culture where this is what's more important than football? When I turn on football, I just want to see the game.
Well, because the left has decided that politics should be everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Right, and that's why a lot of people tuned out, because it's what people don't realize is it's not just the anthem, right? It's just like with anything with relativism, the rules are becoming relative. There's been so much debate over the past 3 or 4 seasons about what an actual catch is. How can you have a football league and you can't decide what a catch is, and it's an argument every play whether someone caught the ball? And then also this whole concussion thing where people are trying to say the sport's barbaric and you're all terrible people for watching it. So people just go, I don't need this stress in my life. I'm tuning it out.
It's kind of becoming a thing.
Then you have Trump getting involved here.
Yeah.
What was Trump's letter?
Well, Trump did not start this. So although he spoke out about the NFL protest, and the Eagles have been outspoken, I can't remember if it's the coach or the owner, has been an outspoken critic of Trump. And then what happened was, I guess the Eagles are invited to go to the White House, and a large percentage of them weren't going to go. And when Trump found out about that, he disinvited all of them. He said, if the whole team can't come, then I'm going to cancel it, and we're going to do a patriotic ceremony without you. Because if the whole team can't come and enjoy the national anthem, then screw you. We'll enjoy it without you. And so I try to put this in the context of the larger culture war, though, because it is a culture war. You have, on the one hand, the left politicizing football now. And they're the ones that the players aren't going to go to the White House, like in some stupid protest. I mean, honestly. And it is kind of shitting on America, when you say, well, I can't go to the White House. It's not even about Trump. When Obama was president, there were a lot of people who didn't like him, but people still went to the White House. So
I'm actually going to have to push back. I know it's supposed to be yes and on a podcast, but Tom Brady actually didn't go one of the times the Patriots won and Obama was president. So
that was when Trump was president. That was last year.
No, he went when Trump was president.
No,
he didn't go when Obama.
It's the opposite. I'm going to Google
this. All right, I'm Googling this because you're disagreeing. You're disagreeing with me on Tom Brady knowledge.
Yeah, this is amazing. You're supposed to know this stuff, except I'm like a political junkie, so I know all these details. I will read the statement by the president, and you Google that. So here's the statement. The Philadelphia Eagles, this is from President Trump. The Philadelphia Eagles are unable to come to the White House with their full team to be celebrated tomorrow. They disagree with their president because he insists. By the way, talking about yourself in the third person already, that drives me crazy. They disagree with their president because he insists that they proudly stand for the national anthem, hand on heart, in honor of the great men and women of our military and the people of our country. See, this is where the statement goes awry to me because, first of all, don't talk about yourself in the third person, but the president should never insist that anybody do anything with respect to patriotism. The Eagles wanted to send a smaller delegation, but the 1,000 fans planning to attend the event deserve better. These fans are still invited to the White House to be part of a different type of ceremony, one that will honor our great country, pay tribute to the heroes who fight to protect it, and loudly and proudly play the national anthem. I will be here at 3 p.m. with the United States Marine Band and the United States Army Chorus to celebrate America. So on the one hand, I like this statement because it's pro-America and it's like, look, you want to be anti-America, then you can't come. We're just going to uninvite you and we don't care. It's like honey badger to me. And in the culture war, that's what we need. On the other hand, I don't like the president insisting on anything. He could have said it differently. I don't like the third person talk. That's kind of creepy and king-like. He should be using the royal we, I guess. But so I'm kind of mixed about this statement. But on the other hand, I just really do enjoy when President Trump pushes back against the left. I have these secret feelings. They're not so secret because I'm sitting here telling you guys. I cheer. I cheer because I like it. I like to see somebody push back on the left. And the left and their dominance in entertainment and academia and media is very, very powerful. So seeing the president push back so bluntly on the left makes me happy. What do you think, Justin? Did you Google that yet?
Well, I Googled it, and we were both right. So he didn't visit Obama. He didn't visit Obama either, but he also did not visit Trump. So I was wrong. We were both right.
I was wrong and right at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny how that can work.
So he didn't like Obama or Trump.
I mean, he said he didn't go to see Obama because his mom had cancer at the time, which is true. I mean, she's been sick for years, but I mean, who knows?
Okay, Justin. So you were totally wrong. He didn't go visit Obama because his mom had cancer, but he didn't visit the White House under Trump because Trump.
Well, it also could have been because Giselle, because now that I think about it, there was the whole thing where Giselle was like, "We're not Trump supporters. We're not Trump supporters." So it's hard to know. He did have the Trump hat in his locker and everything, which caused controversy.
What?
And that's part of what. Back when Trump was running, he had the hat in his locker, and it was a big controversy in the leftist.
So he had to disavow or be ruined by the SJWs. I mean, be a bigger pussy. People need to be more like Kanye West. Take your lumps,
Bipolar?
Take your lumps. I mean, if you're really a supporter of Trump, come out and be a supporter of Trump. It's everybody hiding that makes the SJWs more powerful.
Well, right, and that's why what you're saying carries a lot of weight to it. The idea that somebody is pushing back is huge, and that's how Trump won, right? That's how he won the presidency.
That is exactly why he's president. It's not because he's some great mind. We all know. I don't think anybody thinks he's some people are a little crazy, and they think that he's got some sort of brilliance or genius, that he's playing this chess behind the scenes or something. I just think he's good at tough talk and pushing back against the left. He doesn't carry around guilt. He doesn't carry around that, America guilt that everybody does on the right. It's a relief.
Right. And that's why he's winning, and that's why people love him. And that's why the more this happens, the more likely it is he's going to be reelected.
That's right.
But there's still part of me that's saying, dude, just let the players come that want to come.
There are some want him to be civil and nice.
Right, exactly. And that's my biggest problem.
Have the dignity of the office.
Right.
He doesn't. But now he'll never have it.
Well, he's not going to have it for two reasons. One, his personality, and two, it's what politics is now. Politics is constantly running a re-election campaign. He's been running a re-election campaign since the moment he got elected, because now we have the 24-hour social media news cycle, and that's all this is. This is a stunt on his part. That's all this is a stunt.
Absolutely. But again, it's who are you going to play to? The American Patriot or the Antifa SJW left? I mean, those are your choices, because all the people in between are going with the flow,
I get you, but this is an example of, you saw how little I cared. I didn't even commit to memory if Brady went the last time around. That's how little it means. One of my personal heroes, I can remember. And that's the thing, is I think what we'll see more and more is the people who really care, rather than going with the flow, they're going to remove themselves and just do what they want outside of the culture as much as they can.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. So anyway, I'm mixed about that. But to move on to other news and presidential politics, we have some MeToo news. Actually, before I do that, I skipped over a very important part of my podcast. We get phone calls to our voicemail, and they tell jokes. and we got a joke. So I'm going to play that right now in between these two stories. All right. This is, I believe, Southern accent guy. We don't know his name.
Okay. Sorry for not calling in last week. Little Johnny's on his first day of school, and the secretary asked him, "What's your father's occupation?" Little Johnny says, "He's a magician, ma'am." She asks, "Wow, that's interesting. What's his favorite trick?" Little Johnny says, "He saws people in half." "Wow," she exclaims. "Now, Johnny, next question. Any brothers and sisters?" Little Johnny says, "Yes, one half brother, two half sisters." Also, Sonny, did you call Tommy Robinson a bloke? Just checking. Thanks.
All right. That's a funny joke. I for some reason, I thought that was going to go dirty, and it didn't.
Well, in the South, that kind of went dirty when you're talking about like half sisters and brothers. I mean, there's some incest there, maybe, right?
Right. Well, he asked if I called Tommy Robinson a bloke.
Yes, and that's what everyone wants to know. That's what America wants to know, Sonny. That's why I'm on this show. Did you call him a bloke?
I said bloke. Bloke with a K.
Oh.
That's a kind of a British term for dude or guy. So that's what I said. All right, moving on to the Me Too news. Bill Clinton came out and stuck his foot in his mouth about Monica Lewinsky, and then Woody Allen said, "Hey, Bill Clinton, hold my beer." So let's talk about what Bill Clinton said first. Somebody confronted him. Amazingly, a news reporter confronted Bill Clinton about Monica Lewinsky and related to Me Too. Who had the guts to do that? That's crazy that somebody did that. And of course, Bill Clinton was not expecting it, and he got very defensive and ended up saying something like, "I've apologized," and when asked, by the way, this is a total gotcha question, and I don't think this is responsible journalism, but they said to him, have you given a direct apology to Monica Lewinsky, or do you think you owe her a direct apology? And he said no. But it was clearly a setup. Like, what's he supposed to say, you know? However, he's a total rapist molester, so I don't really feel too bad for him. But anyway, that's what happened, and that's all over the news today. Bill Clinton saying he doesn't need to apologize directly to Monica Lewinsky, whose life he ruined. And, you know, the whole Me Too thing is about men in positions of power molesting or using their position to get sex from young women. And if that's not a perfect example of that, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Like, I think adultery is wrong. I think there's something kind of creepy about what they did in the White House. I don't think it's moral, but at the same time, I don't know that it should be against the law, you know? I know that it shouldn't be against the law. So I can't get too worked up about it.
So the person who did the interview, I believe it was Lester Holt. It was with the Today Show.
And
I believe
it wasn't Lester Holt. It was another black dude. You think all black guys look alike?
I'm racist. Is somebody take a knee during this podcast to protest me? I was trying to figure it out because that was the only one I could think of, and I Googled it. And to be fair, I saw the glasses, and I was like, the black guy didn't have glasses, but maybe he just didn't wear them.
That's a younger version of Lester Holt, though. Who is the guy? What is his name?
I don't know. You can look that up, because to me, did you watch this interview?
It's Today host Craig Melvin.
Okay, I'm sorry, Craig Melvin. Yeah. I apologize. Okay,
we don't know who you are yet, Craig, but now we know.
Yeah, now we know that you are not Lester Holt. That's now for the rest of my life, I will always think of Craig Melvin as not Lester Holt. But did you watch this interview that Melvin did?
I watched a little bit of it. I watched the clip where he said that.
Right. And the whole point is to promote this book he wrote that Bill Clinton wrote with James Patterson.
Yeah. What's the book?
It's called. Well, I don't want to plug the book. Like, if you care, look it up. But
it's about his life or something like that, though.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a fiction book.
Oh, seriously?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna plug it now since you said it's called "The President Is Missing." So unless it's like some metaphor about how he went missing and his psychology went insane when he was molesting women, then I think it's literally like the president being abducted. I think it's a thriller.
Oh.
I'm sure Patterson wrote it and they just put Clinton's name on it to drive sales.
James Patterson writes a book a week. Like, he's so prolific. So,
well, it's like R.L. Stine with Goosebumps back in the day. I'm using air quotes right now.
Yeah.
James Patterson writes a book a week.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That in the interview, the funniest thing to me is, did you see how uncomfortable James Patterson looked?
No, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, I was looking at him whenever they did a wide 2-shot of him and Clinton. He'd like fiddle with his glasses, like look down, like put his hands in his pockets.
Don't anybody ask me, why did I write a book with a rapist, please? Don't ask me.
Well, and what do you do if you're a dude and you're sitting there and the guy next to you has raped a woman and raped multiple women and they ask him about it and you're just like,
this is just my buddy, but don't mind me.
Yeah, exactly. So that was super awkward.
Yeah, super awkward.
But the whole thing about this is just sort of like, if you're Clinton, right? And I get it. He's trying to promote his book and he's trying to go on a book tour and drive sales. But with everything that's going on, did nobody in his PR team be like, Bill, maybe don't do any public appearances for the next 5 years? Maybe?
Yeah. Well, he has to. How can he not? How can he go on a book tour and not do a public appearance? But why they couldn't control the interview questions? I mean, we know Hillary does. Why can't Bill?
I think that it's just that you said, it's the virtue signaling, social justice warrior.
They don't know who to
now.
pick. Do we pick Me Too or do we pick the Clintons? It's a difficult choice.
Well, it's very easy I don't think it's difficult for them because it's a difference of gender, and all they did was throw the male Clinton under the bus in favor of the female Clinton because that's all the only choice they have right now.
So you're
because
saying
that's
it's
their
all
entire,
about feminism now.
That's 100% what it is. I mean, there's an attack on masculinity in this culture, and that's exactly what this is an example of.
That trumps everything.
Right, and it's great you use the word Trump because that was the other thing that stood out to me is how much did Bill Clinton sound like Donald Trump in this interview? Oh my God. Yeah. He literally was saying, you don't have all the facts. You don't have all the facts. You're just going on your agenda. And I was like, holy crap, we have complete convergence now.
And they're the same. They're similar guys. Although I don't even like to say that. Bill Clinton actually has been accused. And I have to clarify, he was never convicted of rape. But he was accused of rape by multiple women. It's a Bill Cosby situation. And Donald Trump being kind of crude and, is not the same. It's not the same. You can think Donald Trump might be immoral. Maybe he slept with the Stormy Daniels porn star or whatever, but it is not the same, and I don't think anyone has accused him of rape. So.
Trump, there's been a whole bunch of stuff that's never been confirmed. Like there was stuff about he went to a sex party where there was like underage stuff and things, but none of it's ever been confirmed. And that's the difference, regardless of, Clinton's never been convicted, right? But we do have confirmation that he abused his power
we know
to have sex with an intern. Whether it was just oral or whether there was all kinds of sex, every form of it, it doesn't matter. This is a man who was president of the United States and used his power to have sex with a just out of college intern.
Yeah. In the White House, in the Oval Office. Ugh.
Right. And as I said, there's an attack on masculinity, but there is this dark, seedy underbelly as well of men that are doing this. So it's a fine balance. And
I loved it when Bill Clinton said, Would you think that Kennedy should have resigned? So in other words, saying Kennedy was a womanizer, should he have resigned? Well, in the lens of the Me Too movement, yes. Okay, so then Woody Allen comes out and says, this is a quote. I'm going to read the whole quote because you just can't believe this. He said, Bill Clinton, hold my beer. Quote, I'm a big advocate of the Me Too movement. I feel when they find people who harass innocent women and men, it's a good thing that they're exposing them. But I should be the poster boy for the Me Too movement because I have worked in movies for 50 years. I've worked with hundreds of actresses and not a single one, big ones, famous ones starting out, have ever suggested any kind of impropriety at all. I've always had a wonderful record with them. So, hanging over his head is the molestation accusation that came out by his daughter, Dylan, I guess when she was 7. So now that has not been proven either. And I honestly, there are different accounts from people in the same family, whether or not that happened. And it does appear that the government actually looked into that during a custody hearing and found that there wasn't any evidence or enough evidence or whatever. And so, I I don't want to say Woody Allen is guilty, but anyway, that's hanging over his head. And with that hanging over my head, I would never say I should be the poster boy for the Me Too movement. I don't think you should do that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, especially given that context, right? Given the context of, hey, you've been accused of molesting your own daughter. Maybe keep your mouth shut. It's the same thing I said with Clinton's PR team. Woody, maybe
don't comment on Me Too at all. Don't touch the subject.
But at the same time, even generally, if you're a dude and you have never done anything improper with a woman, and I mean legally, I mean sexual misconduct, rape, all of these things. I don't mean like Aziz Ansari where it's like you were overly aggressive and she felt uncomfortable. I mean, if you've never done anything wrong, why would you want to be associated with Me Too? The idea that he says, I should be the poster boy for the Me Too movement. You're a dude.
You're a dude. Yeah,
the best
exactly.
thing you can do is to not be associated with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Stay out of it.
Just
it's
say
absurd.
you're supportive, but to say I should be the poster boy is really narcissistic for a guy.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's also part of what, the manosphere talks about with our culture and the whole idea of this attack on masculinity. It's the idea that men, in order to be accepted, must grovel at the feet of women. He's doing this because he's saying, here, look, women, I'm throwing myself upon my sword for you. I am showing that I am your ally. Please accept me and make me a worthwhile man. And that's what a lot of people in the men's rights activists in that movement are saying, is that for too long, just as women have had to define themselves by men, men have had to define themselves by women, and the approval of women what gives them worth. And that's what he's doing here. And it's not a surprise. He's a vintage beta male, and that's what they live for.
Yeah, he's totally virtue signaling, and it's inappropriate.
And I want to point out one other thing that he said. I'm really surprised that nobody's gone after him for body shaming, because he lists all the actresses, the types he's worked with, and he says big ones, famous ones. So the fact that he had to differentiate between the two, was he talking about fat actresses?
No. By big, he means famous.
I know, Sonny, it's a joke.
Oh, sorry. I didn't catch it. Big ones, skinny ones, famous ones, short ones starting out. Now, the funny thing about it is saying that no one's ever complained. Like, how many years did Weinstein get away with it and nobody complained? And he could have said no one complained. So that's not even a thing.
Well, especially when we're living in the age where the dudes who say they didn't the most tend to be the ones who did, right? We saw this with Joss Whedon.
That's right.
It's the Whedon law,
In
right?
fact, the way that he says this whole thing is a lot like that guy that, look at me as the biggest ally for this, because that's who I want to be, because I'm actually really creepy and gross.
Because I'm actually a skeleton and I bought an Asian wife. Yeah.
The fact that he seduced and married his, stepdaughter. Really. I mean, I realized that there was no direct, he didn't adopt her or whatever, but this was a 20-year-old girl who was the child of his ex-wife, the sister of his children, the sister of his kids, you know? And he ended up with her. That is gross and creepy already. I don't care if he was attracted to her, he should have walked away. He should have done everything he could to not do anything about it. And the fact that he did is awful.
I question how much he was actually attracted to her. I mean, have you seen her? Not to be rude, and everyone has their preferences.
Have you seen him, Justin?
Well, that's the point I'm making, that's what these type of guys do. Right? They have this mentality that this is what they have to do. They don't believe, and they don't have the confidence that they can just go up to a woman they find attractive and say, hey, I find you attractive.
You seduce your daughter? Ugh.
I'm not defending it. But, I mean, how Harvey Weinstein masturbated into a potted plant. At what point do you get to that, too? I mean, there's clearly psychological issues here.
There was that one movie where that guy masturbated with an apple pie. Everybody thought that was hilarious. But yeah, this is gross. He's creepy. And Riff Raff, some rapper. Are you familiar with Riff Raff?
Oh, I know who Riff Raff is. I'm well versed in white rap.
Okay, so I actually was calling him Rough Ruff earlier, but it's Riff Raff. He is being accused of rape, So he's been accused of rape, and all of his concerts have been canceled from a social media accusation. Is that overkill?
It's overkill, but it's the world we live in. I mean, there was a professional wrestler, Enzo Amore, who was fired from the WWE because some girl in Arizona accused him of rape. The case was then thrown out, and he is now free to go, and he is not a criminal at all. They didn't say he did it.
Congratulations, though, your reputation is ruined.
Oh, and that's exactly what he has now done. Is Enzo Amore has now also become a white rapper, where he released a song about how his reputation is destroyed because of that.
Yeah. So this is kind of scary. If I were a guy, I would be doing the Pence thing every time. Every time I had to meet with a woman, I'd have somebody there with me. I just would never, ever put myself into a situation. And in fact, I might just wear a body cam 24/7 in case I got to go back to that footage and prove that I didn't do anything, because it is really, really it's creepy enough to think that a woman, the pre-Me Too environment, being accused of rape or molestation, particularly of your children or whatever, like all of that is absolutely reputation ruining anyway. I mean, look what happened to those Duke kids. And there was stuff going on campuses where accusations are being treated like, facts. So this kind of stuff was going on before the Me Too movement, but now the Me Too has made it way, way worse. And ladies, if you really want someone to pay the price of a rape, call the cops. And if you don't, I'm sorry. I mean, I realize it's difficult. You've been raped. Maybe you just want to go take a shower. You just want to go recover for a few days first. You've just washed away all the evidence, and it becomes a he said, she said. So you're just gonna have to get tough and call the cops, and otherwise you're gonna lose your chance. So I don't really like that this guy's his life is ruined, and he may be horrible. He may be a horrible person, but now everybody has that doubt.
Some of that stuff you just said, I'm not going to touch because I'm a guy, so I'm going to defer to you on all
scared.
that.
Ah, come on.
No, it's 100%. Well, I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, it's partially. I'm not going to walk into that. But
what's
with
it like
riffraff,
as a guy? Like, you can't even ask a girl out under a lot of circumstances. Like, if you know her from work, you cannot ask her out or flirt. Forget it.
Well, from personal experience, it's about being able to read the type of woman who you're approaching or not. You can tell the women who aren't and who are going to get upset. And I'm actually noticing a backlash.
Tell me how you can tell.
I mean, how do you tell who's an SJW? So you can tell how they dress, how they carry themselves, the kind of things they talk about.
Blue hair,
shorter hair.
Dressed like a dude.
Right. And
nobody's hitting on those ladies anyway.
Well, right. And now you see part of why they do it. Oh, look, somebody hit on me, blah, blah, blah.
How dare they?
Yes,
they don't want to be hit on. They don't want to be hit on. I mean, every woman I know has been sexually harassed, though. So it's not like I have been. I'm like, we've had shows where I've talked about it. I think I complained once because the guy wouldn't quit, and it was overt. And I had coworkers who were, this is what I love, though. I think, where are all the real men? Because it's always the men who defend you. And I was in these situations, and if in the situation where I actually ended up having to complain, the guy was so aggressive that he wouldn't quit, and he was getting touchy. And this went over weeks, this was going on for a while. And I had coworkers telling him to knock it off. So the men that I worked with were like telling this guy to quit it because they were witnessing it. And that's how it should be, and probably you don't want to comment on that either, but
well, no, I agree with what you said.
I don't know how popular of an opinion that is. Women should be able to protect themselves, but it's also really, really nice when a guy comes to your defense.
Right, and what you're talking about is, again, the loss of masculinity in our society.
Right.
Men are so afraid to stand up that they won't, so it lets guys like that get away from it.
Yes.
And that's, you just talked about it with Woody Allen and Harvey Weinstein. It's guys who wouldn't be able to succeed with women otherwise get themselves in a position of power, so the type of guys that they would normally have to fight off are no longer there. I mean, imagine if Woody Allen tried to do something like that in front of Bruce Willis? Do you think he'd be able to get away with it?
No.
Well, has he ever cast Bruce Willis in a movie?
Right,
No, because he wouldn't be able to have someone like that on set. Same thing is why Harvey Weinstein, what did he do? He would go and get the hotel key for the actress and go to her room in the middle of the night where there's no one there to protect her.
Right.
These guys are predators. They know that. And the issue is when you're portraying them all as predators. So when you look at this riffraff thing, I looked it up, and there are two accusations. One, if it's true, it's indefensible. Who knows how true it is? Basically, he was accused of drugging and raping a girl.
Drugging and raping. And honestly, if it's true, there were so many witnesses to that. So it seems like she ought to file a police report and start subpoenaing people because it was supposedly done within a group. So...
Right, and there's no defending that if that's true.
Right.
But it's like you said, with so many witnesses, you think somebody would have come forward or something. Then again, who knows? But the second accusation that I was just reading about was at Warped Tour in 2015. And this girl went on Riff Raff's tour bus with her female friend, and Riff Raff was giving her the tour of the bus. And this girl was 17 at the time. And giving the two of them the tour of the bus. And then at a certain point, he said, "Hey, do you guys want to see the back of the bus?" And she said, I turned to my friend who was no longer following, and she was like, "No, don't go." And she went in the back with Riff Raff, and Riff Raff closed the door and invited her onto the bed. And when she didn't, he pulled her onto the bed, and she had to push him off and, get out of there. Now, here's the thing about this. Riff Raff was just being an aggressive male. He wasn't being a beta male. He wasn't manipulating.
Right.
He was assuming this 17-year-old girl who probably was in a situation she didn't know. So that's a fault of her family and friends for not properly educating her and saying this is the way a guy will read signals. If you go on a touring musician's bus and go in his bedroom, he is taking that as consent. Is it consent? No, I'm not saying it's consent, but he's taking it as consent.
He's taking it as consent to the level that he can continue to hit on her pretty aggressively.
Right.
But he didn't rape her. She doesn't accuse him of rape.
Right. But they said it's sexual misconduct, and this is the same thing as the Aziz situation.
Yeah, right.
The way as a guy it works, ladies, I'm gonna go behind the curtain here how it works. Right? I'm gonna reveal it to you.
Tell us, Justin.
They're little steps of escalation to see if there is agreement and consent. Basically, you're constantly escalating little by little until that point.
Hesitation is a tentative consent.
Right, and it's your job as the guy to make her feel comfortable and say, "No, I'm okay."
And ladies like to be pursued. They like a little aggression.
Right. So this whole thing, I don't take that seriously at all. It's like you should have known. This is a life lesson. Now you do know.
And she survived it. She's not hurt.
Right.
She got aggressively pursued sexually, and he let her go when she finally said no strong enough. Great. You're right. That's a lesson. And
it also shows Riff Raff's character. He let her go.
Yeah.
He said, "I don't want to have sex with a girl who doesn't want to have sex with me. Get out of here."
Right. Yeah. So I'm a little bit skeptical about this.
Oh, I'm completely am too. Although we should have asked if she was 17. Although who knows what state he was in. If they were in Warped Tour in South Carolina, 17 could have been legal.
Those rock stars, man, they get a lot of young girls. I have a friend from high school who I've been on his tour bus. He's a rapper. I'm not going to mention any names, but he talked about the women and the way that is. And I mean, it's just kind of amazing and unbelievable and kind of gross, frankly. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't, even if I was a star, I wouldn't want those type of girls.
Well, but what type of girl? This 17-year-old might be the epitome of the type that he would talk about. These are young girls with no experience. They're clean. I'm not sorry, but they're white. They are not like slutty women. They are inexperienced. And they're in a situation, they're kind of in over their head. But they want to be cool, and they're with this famous person, and they're these guys aren't picking the gross slutty sluts to go in the bus with them. They're picking the fresh-faced, pretty, young, inexperienced, sweet girls. So
I'm an adult now, though, so there's that nice middle ground that I need to find between not slutty but also experienced, because when I look at a kid like that now, they're just a kid to me. Well, I remember when I was young, My dad said something to me about that one time. I was like, don't you like, I look at these girls in high school and they're so hot. Don't you like see that they're pretty? And he goes, Justin, at a certain age, you just look at them and you go, they're kids.
They're kids.
And I finally reached that age.
Yeah.
That's how I knew I was getting old, where I started to see mothers as hotter than their daughters.
Ooh, nice. You know how I started knowing I was getting old is when I realized that the people who were on TV as experts were younger and less experienced than me.
Yeah.
And that I actually probably could have, I realized how little they knew.
It's like listening to Ben Shapiro, any Ben Shapiro interview. Yeah.
He is kind of young, but he's smart. Yeah. You don't think he's smart?
I didn't say he wasn't smart. I just said he's younger than me.
He's very young. And some of the things that he says that he kind of puts his foot in his mouth, and I think, that's a kind of a maturity thing. Like,
yes.
He said something about some weird comment about love and marriage that I thought was really strange. And I thought only a guy in his 20s would say that.
Yeah, he was speaking out against the whole incel thing, and he was taking the very Christian defense of marriage and relationships, and it was definitely the naivete of youth.
It just sounded cold, and like the older you get, the more you're like, family, family's so great, and you're just like really in love with your family. Whereas in your 20s, you're like, it's just something I do, and it's like, yeah, they're family, but I'm doing my own thing. I got my career. You're just focused on different things.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about ladies, the other thing in the news to wrap up the podcast, well, we got two more things to wrap up the podcast. But so did you hear that they're going to eliminate the bathing suit competition from the Miss Universe pageant?
I did, because thanks to the content of our show, my social media went nuts this morning with people sending me articles about this story.
Yeah. So this is weird. I mean, on the one hand, we've got to come up with a new word for this, because I called this the lesbianization of the beauty pageant. But, and it kind of is, but I know that it's not just lesbians, but it's the feminists who I am starting to think of as lesbians. And I know they're not all lesbians, and I don't mean anything against lesbians, actually, because I think that some lesbians, it doesn't mean you're a feminist to be a lesbian. There's not the same thing. But these feminists are ruining everything masculine and everything feminine, and they tend to kind of uphold slutty behavior, and they like vaginas being all out in the open and show your boobs and stuff. But then on the other hand, they want the Miss Universes, these women, to be more covered. They're acting like Islamists,
Well, it's the same thing as what I was just saying about Harvey Weinstein and Woody Allen. It's the women who can't deal with having these women as competition, eliminating them as competition. They don't want men to look at these kind of women to see what's possible, because then men are going to look at them and go, no thanks.
It's envy. It's just pure envy. They want
hatred of the good.
They want the ugly woman to show her boobs and her vagina and be slutty. And they want women like Katy Perry to shave their head and become ugly. But if you are beautiful, what, you don't agree with that?
Well, I think Katy Perry already is ugly. Have you ever seen her without makeup on?
No, but, she was cute. And she did the most with what she had, and, she was cute. Now she's unattractive. She's unattractive. I guess I wouldn't say ugly, but I hate her new blonde haircut. And all the women who have done that too, who are kind of, there's two beauty movements going on right now. One is this kind of anti-beauty thing, which is gross, I think. The Katy Perry version of what she's done, cutting your hair off, dyeing it weird colors, nose rings, being fat, being gross. The Lena Dunham version of beauty. And then the second one I really like, which is the kind of anti-Kardashian realism, like women not wearing as much makeup, being comfortable with real flaws, which can make you very feminine. Not overdoing your eyebrows, not overdoing your, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the pancake makeup of the Kardashians. It's the rejection of that and going kind of to another extreme where you have women wearing very little makeup and being much more sort of fresh-faced. You had Christina Aguilera come out with a shot for some promotion where she's not wearing any makeup and she looks beautiful. She's not looking like a butch. She just looks natural. So there's like natural beauty versus this literally ugly. And I guess they want these women who are competing in a beauty contest, and what they have are their looks. That's their main thing. And it's like they also have other things. They have talents and so on. But the main thing is that they're really beautiful women, and they want to take that away.
Right, because they like outlawed the swimsuit part of it. Well, I don't mean like governmentally outlawed, but they said that there's no longer the swimsuit competition, correct?
Yeah, right. That's what they did. Because they want it to be more about something else. I mean, I guess they still get to parade around in the dresses, but the swimsuit competition is gone because it objectifies them. So
what is the difference with this and any sort of fashion show now? Because they've lost their male audience now, right? Like, dudes aren't going to tune in anymore. So then what's the difference between this and a fashion show where women watch like the Victoria's Secret fashion show or the Met Gala just to see the fashion? Now, isn't that what just this is? We're just going to tune in to see what the women are dressed like?
I don't know. They're going to have to turn this into some sort of catty reality show if people are going to actually tune in. They're going to have to do behind the scenes on the bus. Watch, film them yelling at each other and screeching behind the scenes, and then people can vote. That's the only way they're going to save this.
Weird Big Brother Bad Girls Club hybrid you just pitched right now.
Yeah, it's like, Housewives of Beverly Hills except Miss Universe. I think that would work. I mean, it's a cliche. There's movie after movie that shows the cat fighting that goes on behind the scenes of these types of things. And anytime you get a group of women together competing, you're going to get catty behavior from some of them. So
I mean, what are they going to fight over, though? To not go on stage? Like, I don't understand. I mean, isn't this going to affect the participation, too? I mean, if you're a young girl who would usually participate in these beauty pageants, wouldn't you not do them anymore? I mean, this fundamentally changes the whole beauty pageant industry, does it not?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of puts emphasis on the other things, like the talent and the answer to the questions and things like that. And it takes it off I mean, I think what they would like is for someone ugly to win the beauty contest. That's what's going to be next, is put up the ugliest person, and we'll cheer when Miss Iowa, who's 50 pounds overweight and has ratty hair and dyed, half green and half blue with a nose ring, gets picked as Miss Universe instead of a beautiful woman.
Right. It's the body positivity movement. It's the idea that even though you don't take care of yourself and you don't make yourself the best version of yourself, you should still be positive about your body.
Yeah, to the extent that you win a contest.
Right. 100% correct. And we need to start distinguishing in our society between true body positivity and this social justice body positivity.
Yeah, I
agree.
True
body positivity is I'm 5'6". I like my height, even though it's not the ideal height. That's body positivity. You can't control it.
Right.
Love that part of you. Body positivity is not if I just started eating crap all the time and didn't go to the gym anymore and said, oh, I love my body, even though I know I'm capable of more. And that's what you're right. That's what they're trying to do now.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it so, and it's even worse because somebody smart is going to be considered social justice relativist, right?
Right.
So that's the problem here, is it's even worse. It's going to be not only does body not matter, but you have to toe the line of leftism. You're going to have to be,
that's a really good point. You're going to have to be an SJW to win this contest now, or pretend to be one, and virtue signal all over the place.
And that's the big point about all of this is, in a free market, the option would be, well, we want a true beauty pageant. We'll make something and call it a true beauty pageant. But this social justice crap is so anti-reality that they can't create a competing pageant on the market. Their only way of getting their ideology forward is to destroy what already exists and take it over, because they would never win on the free market.
It almost feels planned, the way that they kind of went into the video games, and then they went into comic books, and now they're here. I mean, it almost feels planned. But
that's
it's
because
not.
it is planned.
It's
no,
not.
it's 100% planned.
What? There's like a
look up. Talk a little more. I'm gonna Google a book that I read that's really, really good. I gotta find the name of it though. I can only remember the first name of the author.
Well, the only thing that I remember as far as this being quote unquote planned is there was an article I read from the sister of a prominent feminist from the 60s, 70s. And the sister wrote an article saying, you know, you guys all took the advice of my sister, and she was actually absolutely crazy, and kind of went into a bunch of stuff about that. And she was institutionalized a bunch of times. And this sister had attended several meetings with this woman and other prominent feminists where they were actually plotting. They were absolutely overt Marxists, plotting about using, influencing the culture in a Marxist direction using sex as a way to divide people and to create what didn't work, which was the class. Class divisions didn't work in this country because people were relatively happy with the way things are economically. And so they found another way to do it, and that's cultural Marxism, and feminism did it, as well as racial relations. You see it there too. This desire to divide us up culturally one way or the other and create oppressed and oppressors. And so the big movement toward it's the patriarchy versus the rest, the women is it is a movement. I realize that, but it does feel like the small tactics are like they're actually hiring a woman to go get a job at a comic book company. I mean, is that even possible? I don't think I believe that level of conspiracy. But Justin, you said that you think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you just described, there's always a discussion of macro versus micro, right? Like how many people, if they're true believers, they're doing this on a micro level and it's the strategies they're enacting, or is there like one figurehead leading it? I don't think cultural movements happen always from one figurehead. But the book I was referring to is called SJWs Always Lie, Taking Down the Thought Police. It's by Vox Day. One of the Midsiders, one of our listeners, sent it to me, and I read it, and I was like, yeah, this is 100% true. I've identified this behavior everywhere. And Vox Day is writing about it to show how they infiltrate organizations and take them over in order to make them
what do they do?
social justice
they
organizations.
Raise money so they have the time and money to do this?
Well, the first thing they do is they get in positions of power like HR, and they take over HR and they set the code of conduct, and then they create a little power structure there where they're the ones defining the laws, and then anyone who dares speak out against it, such as James Damore at Google, they get that sort of treatment of it. And little by little, they whittle away all of the non-believers until they've taken it over.
I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that that's actually like there's like a headquarters somewhere where the feminists plan this, and yet at the same time, it seems it's really working. So it does seem like it would almost have to be planned.
We're living in the age of decentralized, Sonny. Remember, we had the whole thing with terrorism where the cells aren't connected, so they don't know. Well, that's what we have now with the internet and with social media. Is social media has allowed these people to network in a decentralized way. So it's not like there's a headquarters. It's not like everyone goes down to like the SJW house and talks about how we're going to make SJWism happen. But they think what they have is right, and then they use these strategies to take over what they see as the biggest threat.
Yeah. And the biggest threat is anything that's catering to the white male patriarchy.
The white male patriarchy or any sort of meritocracy. So even here we see women who are getting ahead because they are objectively beautiful, and that's a bad thing because that means that they are not going to get ahead.
Well, on that happy note, we've done an hour, so I think we're going to answer for the show today. Thanks, Justin, for joining me today at the last minute, and thanks to all you listeners, especially my Elite Squad listeners. If you enjoy the show, consider joining my Patreon Elite Squad. We are completely fan-funded, so we need you to keep doing this show. You can get mugs, t-shirts, and access to a secret Facebook group and more. Go to patreon.com/House of Sunny to join up. Talk to you next week, folks. And now, here's the bonus segment where I am joined by my good friend, lawyer, and freedom lover, Ed Mazlish, to talk about the gay wedding cake case before the Supreme Court. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is give a little background. There's this bakery in Colorado, and this guy is a pretty overt Christian, and this gay couple comes in asking for a cake for their wedding reception. I don't know if they stumbled upon him or if they targeted him, but in any case, he's really devout to the extent that he doesn't even bake Halloween cakes. Not that that's necessarily important here, because who cares, right? If he was an atheist and didn't want to bake the cake, I'd still be on his side. But anyway, that's his profile. He's like a super Christian. And these two gay guys come in, they want a cake. He says, I'm sorry, I can't make cakes for gay wedding receptions or ceremonies. And they sued him. And they won. And then it was appealed. And
well, they didn't sue him. They filed a complaint with the Colorado Commission on Civil Rights.
Okay. And then, so I don't know what that commission, what did they do? Fine him? And then he appealed that or something?
Yes, he appealed the findings of the Civil Rights Commission. I forget, there were 2 levels of review. And I forget which one was first and which one was second, but yeah, I don't remember what the penalty was or what the remedy was. But
okay.
Yes, the couple wanted a cake baked for them. The Christian baker said, "No, I'm not baking it. It violates my sincerely held religious beliefs." They filed a complaint. The complaint went through all administrative channels. Eventually, made it up to the Colorado Supreme Court, and at every level, Baker lost.
The baker lost, right. So then he goes to the Supreme
correct.
Court. And there,
yes.
From what I understand,
there's one other piece of the case that you may want to know about. I don't know if you read the opinions or not, but there was also another Christian activist who went to 3 different bakeries requesting anti-gay marriage cakes. And each of the, he wanted some Bible verses and some other messages, Christian messages on the cakes. And each of the bakers said, "We'll sell you a cake, but we're not putting those messages on." There were some different reasons from each of the 3 bakers. I don't remember what they were off the top of my head, but they wouldn't do the message that this Christian activist wanted. And when they refused, this Christian activist filed a complaint with the same Colorado Commission, and the commission summarily found they made a no discrimination finding, even though religion, I believe, was also a protected class under the statute, that you can't discriminate based on religious beliefs.
Interesting. So with that information, they were able to show that that the law or the ordinance or whatever was being applied differently.
That was part of what was called overt hostility towards religion.
Yeah.
That the majority opinion by Kennedy discussed, and Gorsuch mentioned it, and Thomas mentioned it, but Thomas focused more on the free speech and expressive speech components of the case, which none of the other opinions talked about. But
so the upshot is the baker won the Supreme Court case, and we have people people on the right sort of celebrating that as a victory for free speech or freedom of religion, First Amendment, and then you have other people saying, "Whoa, it's not that great." And what is your opinion?
Well, without getting too hyperbolic about it, I think this case reminds me a little bit of Marbury versus Madison, which goes all the way back to the beginning of the Republic. And in that case, you had the Judiciary Act of 1789 was at issue. And John Adams lost the 1800 election to Thomas Jefferson. And as he's on his way out of office, he issues a whole bunch of commissions for, I believe, judges, judicial appointments, I believe it was. It was some kind of appointment. I don't remember what it was. But not all of them were delivered. And Marbury was one of the people who had a commission that was supposed to be delivered, and it wasn't delivered before Adams and his administration left office. So he sues Madison, James Madison, who was Secretary of State, for Jefferson, demanding that the commission be delivered. And the Supreme Court opinion written by Marshall found in favor of Jefferson and Madison, saying you don't have to deliver the commission, but it did so on a ground that infuriated them, and basically they won the battle but lost the war. Because what the court did was, the court said the portion of the Judiciary Act of 1789 that was at issue was found unconstitutional. And the court said, we're going to have, that judicial review of acts of the legislature is part of our constitutional system. And Jefferson and his Democratic Republican Party found that horrible. And we still have that debate going on today about whether courts should be reviewing acts of the legislature.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that goes a little far afield, but bringing it back to this case, the Baker won the case, but he lost the war because the gay couple is going to get whatever they want. They could go right back to that same baker tomorrow and ask for a cake, and they would get it. If the baker said he didn't want to bake it, they would file the same complaint with the Colorado Commission on Civil Rights. And what the Supreme Court's decision yesterday or earlier this week did was basically give a roadmap for any civil rights commission that's investigating these complaints, and it gave them a roadmap for how to uphold them. And namely, what they have to do is they can't, as long as they don't start attacking the religious beliefs of the baker, as long as they don't start ridiculing those beliefs, as long as they say, well, those are legitimate religious beliefs, those are weighty interests, protecting your religious expression is a weighty interest of the state, but we also have a weighty interest of the state for protecting people from discrimination. And we have a really important policy for anti-discrimination. And the two are in conflict here. And we have what is called a facially neutral law that applies to everybody. It's not specially aimed at religion. And we're not going to give you a religious exception here without the legislature giving you one in the law. We're going to treat everybody the same. And while we recognize the importance of your sincerely held religious beliefs, in this case, the anti-discrimination state interest is a weighty interest, and we're going to effectuate that state interest, and your religious objections are going to have to yield. Sort of like about 20 years ago in 1991 or so, you had a peyote case where some Native American tribe used peyote, which is a prohibited drug, and they used it for religious ceremony, and they asked for an exemption from the law, the drug prohibition, and the Supreme Court said no. As long as, the religious liberty is an important value, but as long as you have a facially neutral law that doesn't single out religion and doesn't target the religious belief, you don't get a special exemption just because you have a sincerely held religious belief. And that's what's going to happen going forward. Every Civil Rights Commission is going to look at these complaints, and they're going to have a solemn balancing test. They're not going to say anything negative about religion, and they're going to just say, well, we have two important interests, and we have to decide which one is more weighty, and we're going to go with the anti-discrimination.
So does that mean that the Christian activist can also go in and now get his cake ordered? Or to use the other,
go in and not get it ordered.
Or to use the other more famous example, can a Jew be required to make a Nazi cake now? I mean, does it apply equally, or is it still kind of biased against Christians?
I think that's a little bit of an open question because the court didn't get to the free speech and expressive speech or associational issues that were raised in the briefs and that Thomas tried to get to in his concurring opinion. We don't know, but I think it was Gorsuch's opinion that made it clear that the state can't decide that one message is good and one message is bad, and therefore the good message, we're going to protect that person's from being discriminated against, but someone who's got a bad message, we're not going to protect that person from being discriminated against. That's probably how the courts would come out, but it's not clear. I think that's still an open question, and it'll be litigated, but
it is so unclear. It seems so murky, and I think, like, is it because there is a contradiction in the Constitution now with the sort of competing amendments of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, but you have to not discriminate. So those two things can come in conflict.
I don't think it's because there's a contradiction in the Constitution or any of the amendments. I think the problem is that we don't have honest differences of opinion anymore. We've got people that are just trying to use the Constitution to subvert the Constitution. For instance, we had, in the Windsor case, the one that was before Obergefell on gay marriage, and we had the Supreme Court saying that it was not the province of the federal government to define marriage, right? And they threw out the Defense of Marriage Act, and said that's a state issue. And then 2 years later, you get the Obergefell case, and all of a sudden it becomes the federal court's duty to define what marriage is and what marriage is acceptable. And those two positions are really not reconcilable, except if you look at it as you've got people that are looking to undermine the Constitution. And I say that, I make that accusation not as an accusation of malice on the part of Anthony Kennedy or any of the other justices, although, I'm not really sure. Honestly, I've never met them, but I'm just going by the language of what they're doing and the results of what they're doing. And I think that's what's going on. You don't have a contradiction in the Constitution. You've got people that are fundamentally opposed to the Constitution and will use whatever prong of the Constitution they can find to justify their encroachment on our rights and on our freedom of association and freedom to choose things that they don't want to choose for us. That's really what the problem is.
You're saying on the court there are people who are trying to subvert the Constitution.
I'm saying that there are people on the court. I'm saying that there are lawyers who bring the case. There are activists. There are activists who bring the case. I mean, we're not talking about a person or a group of 5 on the Supreme Court or a group of 20 or 50 federal appellate court judges. There's a lot of people. I mean, we've got a very divided society right now, and we've got a lot of people that don't believe in the Constitution, whether explicitly or implicitly. And I think that you've got a lot of people that are using the law to subvert the law, and that's what I think is going on.
So you posted today on Facebook, which is why I called you. You posted an article from Conservative Review written by David Horowitz where he's calling for legislation to fix this cake baking problem.
Yeah. It was Daniel Horowitz, not David Horowitz.
I'm sorry, Daniel Horowitz.
I did post that article. Yeah. It's okay. I'm not friends with either one of them, so I'm just correcting it for anyone listening who wants to look it up.
Do you kind of understand what he's calling for? Do you understand, and what do you think about it?
Well, I don't have the article in front of me.
Well, I'll just read you what he kind of says. He says we need state religious protection bills, such as the one in Mississippi, and we need to, that's kind of his first thing, and then kick the lower courts.
As I recall,
he says, secondly, kick the lower courts out of religious liberty litigation. I don't know how you do that exactly.
Strip them of jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Well, I think to back up, I think as I recall the article, he said that we have 2 choices. One is we can just keep playing this out in the courts and let the courts keep making decisions. But he points out, sort of what I was saying just a minute or 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly what you were saying about the Obergefell.
He talks about cases, right, and in contrast, he mentions cases like Heller, and he mentioned at least 1 or 2 other cases where Heller was decided, and in contrast to Obergefell gets decided, and within a couple months, you've got gay marriage in all 50 states. But Heller gets decided, and we're still fighting about whether you can have a gun in Chicago or any place else in the country. I mean, Heller was about Chicago, and you still have gun control in Chicago, right? And that was a 2010 decision, I think. We're 8 years later, and what happens is the courts are not even-handedly working to uphold liberty on one side of the aisle. They're only upholding the liberty of people who are striving to suppress liberty.
I see.
And that's what's going on. So he says the first possibility is we can just let the courts try and protect us, or we can recognize that that's not working, and we can take our responsibility for ourselves and take our lives into our own hands and work on having our local state legislatures and even Congress pass legislation that will protect us.
Yeah.
And he talks about religious freedom statutes, which will allow, I think he says religious freedom, but I think, as I recall, he also talks about allowing free association as long as there's a matter of conscience.
I think that's really important. This has to get away from the religious thing and just become, look, individuals have a right to do business with whomever they want to, or not do business with whomever they want to. Any doing business with somebody is like, if you have a right to do business with me, you're forcing me. You're forcing me to act. It's not even just, I have to put up with you wanting to do what you want to do.
I agree 100% with that. I don't think you're going to get support for that in any... Yeah, I'm sorry to overtalk you there. I agree with what you're saying 100%, and I would support that legislation 100%. I don't think it has a chance of passing anywhere, including in the reddest of states, because such a law, if you had true freedom of association for a business, you're effectively repealing discrimination statutes.
Yeah, I realize that.
I don't think that that's
We're not ready for that yet.
I think that I think that there's support, particularly in the redder states, for religious liberty legislation.
I suppose if we can get that, it's a step. It's a step, and it's a defeat to the left and the people who are trying to get rid of the Constitution.
Correct. I think that's as far as we can probably get right now. Doesn't mean we shouldn't make the case for what you're saying. We should, whoever, when we go to the legislatures and when we send them proposed legislation, we should include, freedom of conscience for everyone, including atheists, that it doesn't have to be based on a religious objection. It can be based on your own personal beliefs, that everybody has a right to associate with who they want. But that's never going to make it out of committee. That's never going to get passed by a full legislature, even in a red state. And it's not going to get passed in Congress either. But what can get passed is, statutes that uphold religious conscience and sincerely held religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that Daniel Horowitz's article advocates. He also advocates, as I recall, I think you alluded to it a minute ago, stripping the lower courts of jurisdiction to hear challenges to state religious freedom statutes, and that would push the cases directly to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court only takes about 100 or so cases a year, so they probably wouldn't get to all of them. And if they did, it would likely force them to confront the issues a little more squarely.
I see.
And I don't know how the court is going to rule on it, but it also takes it out of the lower. By taking it out of the lower courts, you get rid of forum shopping, where you get these activists who bring cases where they know they've got favorable judges and favorable, they're likely to get a favorable decision.
To try to set precedent.
They build a quilt. They build a quilt of precedent, and then 10 years later, 20 years later, they say, look at all these decisions that have ruled in our way. You guys are regressive. You're not up with the times. And
meanwhile, our side is not doing that. Our side isn't doing that in the other way. Like, we're not building the quilt for freedom. Other
than the very well coordinated effort for gun rights that culminated in Heller, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so this would be another example of trying to do that, of going to your state and trying to get each of them to have a bill similar to this Mississippi bill. And in a couple weeks, my guest is Tara Ross, and we're going to talk to her about the Electoral College. And she wrote a book about that, because there are actually state efforts right now to get rid of that. So,
or to nullify it by having the states direct their electors to vote a certain way that's inconsistent with the Electoral College.
Exactly. So she's saying there's this state-by-state battle right now to save the Electoral College. So it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But there we are.
Right. Well, and, it's ironic because our side is supposed to believe in federalism and is supposed to believe in local government control, and we're not doing it.
We're not very good at it.
We're, I know that you have a lot of objectivist followers, and, a lot of people in our circle of objectivism are very reluctant to have any government at any level dictate things. And, I think that leads them to not pursue legislation at the local level that might otherwise help us.
That's interesting. Maybe you're right. Like, the reason that we can't seem to get ahead and we keep losing is that the left is really good at being part of the bureaucracy and getting, knowing the system and getting the system that we all hate. We just want to live our lives.
We need to take things into our own hands. And I don't mean in a vigilante sort of way. I mean we've got to deal with our own legislators. We have 3 co-equal branches of government. We didn't set up a judicial oligarchy. We didn't set up judicial supremacy. The judiciary is supposed to be a co-equal branch of government. And co-equal means that the legislature and the executive also have a say in what the Constitution says and in how we live our lives. And I think that we need to recognize that there's nothing wrong with going to our legislature rather than running to court and filing a complaint.
That's
if we're willing to file complaints in court, the court is a government, and our side seems, by our side, I mean our objectivist friends, we don't have any problem with running to a court to adjudicate our rights, but we seem to have a problem with going to the legislature and having the legislature do something. And while
we want everything done at this principled level with the courts, the principle of the Constitution and rights.
Right. But you can have principled action from your legislature that upholds our rights.
Yeah.
Just because the legislature acts doesn't mean it acts improperly. I mean, a legislature can do certain things to protect our rights. That's why we have government. I mean, we're not anti-government. And this reluctance to use the legislature to uphold and protect our rights is not working, and it's not what our system is based on, and it's going to lead us further down the road of tyranny, because the other side has control of the judiciary and has control of a lot of cultural institutions that are pushing things in a way away from liberty and towards tyranny. So we have control in the redder states, thank you, in the redder states and the places where the legislature will enact favorable legislation towards a liberty viewpoint, we need to seize that opportunity and push for legislation that's going to be favorable for liberty-minded people.
Well, thanks for joining me today to talk about this, Ed. And I know you had a busy day, and thanks for taking 15 minutes out of your schedule for me.
Thanks for reaching out, Sonny. Anytime.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.